I have a great intro for Larry to introduce his next session, which is that Larry is the only person whose last name rhymes with his occupation better than my own. So Professor Lesser, this is your video poster. How about that?
That's great. Thank you. So, okay, so I don't like the previous poster. I don't know how many people have been to it, but I'm ready to let people just kind of ask me whatever they want to ask me about it.
I actually have a question. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Larry in his video poster was talking about essentially how history can actually play a really big role in humanizing anything that we learn about. And one of the questions I have for you, Larry, is which song of yours is your student's favorite? And I'm curious to know, do you see a difference in students' favorite songs of like statistics majors versus non-majors?
So I guess of the history songs I've done that, you know, I haven't shared all of them with students yet, but the one that's been the biggest hit with students as well as with the general public, strangely enough, is American Pie. It won the Pie Day of the Century Song Contest sponsored by the National Museum of Mathematics in 2015. You know, and like we were talking about the classic rock thing, it's like, you know, I know the song is the #1 hit for Don McLean, but you know, our students might think of it as a hit that Madonna had in the year 2000 or something. So it's a song that's had a long life, but you know, it's in fact, I even published a whole journal article just about that one song, where I talk about how the chorus of that song helps you remember the value of pi, and then the verses go through the history of pi. So there's a lot in there. So yeah, that would be my clear answer of which one is the, you know, the most well-received history song I've done.
Okay, thanks.
But in general, a lot of the history songs, you know, it's like, unless I'm covering that topic, you know, I don't want to just sort of force a song just because I've written it, just because I think it's cool. You know, if it doesn't connect to the content I'm actually teaching, I don't force it. If it's something I've put up on YouTube, then sometimes my students will browse and just find it anyway, you know, but I'm not going to take class time playing a song that doesn't connect to the content.
Mm-hmm.
Larry, can I ask a follow-up on that?
Sure.
And then we'll get to Walter. I'm just wondering why you think American Pie, I don't think you just addressed this. Why has American Pie been so successful? Is it people love the original, or your prosody is unusually good, or something else? It's a song that can be used at a very specific time for a specific holiday.
That's a great question. I'm not totally sure. I mean, to me, you know, at the time I write a math song, of course, I think that one's one of the best I've written, right? And so it's hard to have the perspective of, okay, but which ones are the greater, lesser hits? And I guess the three that people seem to focus on are American Pie and Hotel Infinity and The Gambler. So, but as far as being able to say why, I don't know. That's, you know, maybe I think part of it definitely is that the original song is just such a classic and an iconic song that, you know, if you choose an amazing song to parody, then you know, you do get to sort of coast on that a little bit. You still have to deliver your part, but it does give you a big advantage than if I had parodied a song that, you know, was much more obscure. Do you have any thoughts on why that song seems to be the most popular? You know, I'm maybe there's an insight I'm not seeing.
I don't personally. So maybe head on to Walter Smith's question.
Okay, which is
how much lecturing about the historical content of a song do you do before performing it?
Great question. So I mean, ultimately, it's not I don't think it's that different of a question for any other song, right? I mean, some songs require some content background before it's going to make sense, right? And others can be just as easily debriefed afterwards. And so, you know, I think about the same thing with the history. I mean, with American Pie, there's a lot of very specific pieces of math that are referred to throughout the song, like, you know, arctan series and continued fractions. And, you know, those are topics that the students probably haven't covered before. So it's just going to go by them in this blur of stuff. I mean, there'll be enough stuff that they can follow in real time where that's okay. I don't feel like I can't play the song until I've, you know, given them all the content that's in the song. But I do try to make sure that they're ready for that, what I would call the main pieces of content. Otherwise, they're just looking at you like, okay, it's cool that you did a song, but you know, we don't know what to do with this. You know, so I do, you know, because some songs are nice to sort of use to introduce a topic, and others are nice to use as a way to sort of like as a capstone, like, okay, now that we've talked about it, here's a song that ties it all together and, you know, does something fun with it. And so it's kind of fun to bring it in after some discussion at least. Are there other questions in the chat? Let's see.
I think there's one more question by Walter down at the bottom here.
Oh, I just see there's a question Walter asked about the Smiles project that didn't get answered. He said, can the engine used for the Smile songs easily be used by others? So the technology is certainly adaptable. I would think that, you know, Bob Carey could create a virtual copy of it and let another discipline start putting their stuff in it. Certainly conceptually, there's no obstacle. It would just be a matter of maybe creating maybe another server to store it and everything. The tricky thing is, you know, keeping up with the types of files and, you know, the inputs and how that interfaces. But I guess Bob would need to answer that question, the technical side of it, how readily that would transfer. We certainly don't have it set up now for anyone to use it, but in theory it is adaptable. But we're just first trying to make sure we've got just the stat collection in as good a shape as we can get it. There's one song we still haven't quite finished yet that's proven to be really hard. But once that's done, I think that would be a natural next step, is to find a way to offer the machine to the world, right? So let's see. So Walter had another question about the historical stuff, though. Let's see. Oh, are we concerned that emphasizing the history of a field such as physics, which is really but is mostly but not entirely dominated by men, will reinforce the idea that women don't belong in the field? Excellent point, excellent question. That's actually one reason why I made it a point to write my first statistics biographical song about a female statistician, namely Florence Nightingale. So because, you know, I want my stat students to know that you know, that women do statistics too, and not just in the current decade, but, you know, all the way back to Florence Nightingale, they're examples, right? So so that was actually a very intentional thing. That, I mean, I think her story is inspiring just in general, but it also has the additional benefit of inspiring the female students in the room to know that their gender has done some amazing things in statistics too.
Larry, do you have a ditty for us?
Give me some parameters. What do you want to ditty on?
Whatever your favorite is.
Gosh. Well, how much time do we have? Do you want like a 10-second thing or a 4-minute thing, or what do we have time for?
We have about 6 minutes.
Wow. Well, let's see. I guess I could pull up the Florence Nightingale song, and that could be the, let's see,
Yeah.
Osweb.
And by the way, I did not know that about Florence Nightingale until I watched your video poster, which is pretty interesting.
Oh, cool. Wait. Let me find it. Where is it? Say something, Woody, for 20 seconds while I pull it up.
Oh, I don't know. I'm bad on my feet. I can tell a really bad chemistry joke. So let me think about one. Okay. I tell you a really bad chemistry joke, but they're argon.
Oh.
Wah, wah.
That was bad, I know.
Oh. Almost got it up. Wait a minute. So wrong place here. So Florence.
And by the way, I'm getting text messages from former students who are evidently listening to my terrible chemistry jokes and telling me that all of their roommates are laughing at the moment.
Okay, I think we now have it. Here we go. All right. With statistics, many soldiers were saved in the Crimean War. With statistics, Florence Nightingale found what made the death rate soar. With statistics, Florence graphed the data in innovative ways. A Rose diagram, circular histogram, a polar area display. With statistics, uncleanliness was found to have caused those extra deaths. With statistics, Florence led reform to implement what was best. With statistics, she founded modern nursing. With brilliance and compassion, she gave herself to the cause of health. She took bold action. She said, God is teaching us, God is teaching us, God is teaching us through statistics. With statistics, England and India were healthier places to live. Oh, statistics shone like the lamp Florence brought from bed to bed. With statistics, she set an example of vision and of strength. More than pie charts, her mind and heart would light and lead the way. She said, God is teaching us, God is teaching us, God is teaching us through statistics.
I have to say, Larry, I'm not a huge fan of the original line, you know, God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us. But I do love the way that you adapted that using something that Florence Nightingale actually said. So that's good songwriting right there.
Thank you. It really was one of the things that made me say, this is asking to be parried in this direction. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems like a very kind of respectful take on the song. We talked about that earlier with Tom McFadden, that maybe to truly do a parody right, you need to know something about the original and the intent of the original. And so the original is clearly meant in a sort of reverent way. And I feel like your song is doing the same thing. It's not cracking a cheap joke. It's making a real earnest point.
Well, I appreciate that. But just to play devil's advocate, when Julie Gold wrote that song that was the big hit for Bette Midler, she got a lot of feedback from religious people saying that's so beautiful that you're saying God is watching us. And she also got feedback from people that are agnostic and atheists saying, I like that you said it's from a distance. God is kind of staying away from the world a little bit, and that was in there too. It depends on how you read that line.
Right. Fair enough. Let's see. How are we doing on time? We are out of time, it looks like.